Manchester City 0, Southampton 2. City they crashed out. Actually, that's the word, isn't it? Crashed out of the Carabao Cup. Eliminated and embarrassed, if I'm being honest. That was the worst Manchester City performance I've seen for a while. We see this all the time. When City have a bad half of football, everyone's like, this is the worst we've played in ages. And usually it's just we're 0-0, we haven't created a chance yet. But this actually probably was the worst we played in ages. This was genuinely a poor half of football. And I'm in a bad mood. And my mate Joe Butterfield, you know him via Twitter most likely. Joe texted me saying, we just jumped in the stream. And I was like, Joe, do you want to come on and chat just to alleviate some of my anger and general stress? And Joe said, yes. Joe, thank you.
Yeah, I need this therapy as much as everyone else does after that performance. To be honest,
that performance was fuck me. That was actually bad, wasn't it? Like I just put on Twitter saying that the worry for me is it's so hard because. The one thing I'm torn, Joe, because basically I'm so used to being made to look like an idiot from Guardiola. Every time I was City play badly, and we'd done this before, and then the West Brom game happened years ago, and then we went on that massive run and whatever. But at some point that is going to be true. At some point this fear that we've got is going to be actually real, and that we're not that good. And we have got some problems, but I'm torn between overreacting and trying to go, well, let's be sensible here. But that was. What worried me about that, Joe, is that it felt like that was coming. I know we had a good game performance against Chelsea the other day, but the context of that is different. Is this, how concerned should we be? How are you feeling about that?
Well, yeah, it was the worst performance that I've seen from City since the first half against Chelsea in the league about a week ago.
God, I remember that. That was a while back. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for me, so tonight, before I get into any of this, sort of tonight's performance, like the fact we've gone out of the Carabao Cup in this season of all seasons, I'm not really bothered. Like, I don't think the consequences of this result are not really a huge deal to me. It would have been nice for us to go through and have another trophy like that we're competing for. But really, this season, I think we could all do without the extra fixtures. If we go to the final, that's 3 extra fixtures, and we already have an Arsenal and a Spurs game to sort of cram into the second half of this season from the first half. So look, it's not. There are some reasons why going out is not the worst thing in the world. However, the manner in which we went out is definitely one of the worst things in the world. It's pretty bad. I think the first half performance was what it was. I think Sergio Gomez put in a performance it's going to be talked about in like years to come as like a benchmark for a bad performance, isn't it?
I felt sorry for him. With the foul throw thing.
Yeah.
Because when's the last time you saw any foul throw? I see about 10 a game. We'll just do that, and it's almost like when everything's going wrong for you, and he didn't play well, so he saw his own fault. But when everything's going wrong, when they say it doesn't rain, it pours. Like that was that kind of moment for him where it like caused the referee, humiliated him. Rightfully, it was the right call, but it was that bad, wasn't it?
But 99 times out of 100, that call doesn't get made, and it just so happens that it was the one game where he's having an absolute shocker where it does get made. I think for me the more worrying thing about tonight is, like you say, it feels like it has been, not even that it has been coming. It feels like this has almost been the level of our performance, or not far off it for weeks. Certainly since we came back from the World Cup, with the exception of. Maybe obviously the Chelsea game in the FA Cup where we smashed them, but that was because we played more like the City that we're used to seeing in the system we're more used to seeing, and obviously it did help that Chelsea absolutely did not turn up on the day at all and looked like they couldn't care less about winning that game. Mm-hmm. But I think I just find it. So I've done like a bit of a thread on Twitter when it got to the point of the game where I was just going mental and couldn't be bothered watching it anymore. I was just at the point where nothing that was happening on the screen was doing anything for me. So I was like, right, I need to just get this out there. So basically, for me, it's something that a lot of
Joe
people
Butters,
say.
By the way, everyone, is at Joe Butters.
Yes, please.
I'll put it in the chat now.
So, shout out. I think for me, a lot of people have said that. If one or two players are having a bad game, that's on the players. Like the players are having a bad game, it's their fault. They're out of form. They're playing badly. Whatever the reason is, that is just the nature of
it
football.
Happens. Sorry to interrupt, but my general theory is no one. You very rarely see a game where all 11 players play well because you don't need it because it's not possible because the odds of all 11 players playing well in football is small because it's just the human beings. But when the odds of 11 players playing well is equally as small, so that is correct. That is when it's a worry, isn't it?
That's where the real concern comes from because the other side of that is that when 9, 10, 11 players are all playing badly, there's usually one man who's to blame for that, and it's the guy who puts that team together, picks the tactics, gives out the instructions, and that's the manager. And this isn't, obviously, I love Pep Guardiola. I want him to stay. This isn't me asking for him to be sacked, like I know a lot of people on Twitter have said after this game, because that's just the nature of knee-jerk reactions to stuff like this. Pep Guardiola is still mint, and he's going to work it out at some point. It's going to be fine. But at the moment, it just feels like he doesn't have a clue what he's doing, and people who like, and there's obviously a lot of people who, as much for every person there is on Twitter who thinks that Pep Guardiola is a fraud and should be sacked. There's also another person who thinks that Pep Guardiola can do no wrong and that to criticize him is some kind of blasphemy. And yeah, fair, I can kind of understand that point of view given how we've been for the last 5 years. Like, we've dominated English football. Like, there's very little to complain about. But at this current moment in time, I'm not seeing anything from this last month that gives me any sort of confidence that the players have a clue what they're doing. Like, they just look like the system's changing every week. The personnel in that system is changing every week. Like it's what are we doing? Like, we don't seem wedded to a certain way of playing, and that's fine if you have multiple ways of playing locked down because you've played them for pretty decent streaks of games. But we're changing it so much. We're changing it game to game to the point where no one can get used to it.
Is it necessary, though? Is it not necessary? Because I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Because we like the weird thing about the World Cup, Guardiola said before the game, he said, I don't know how we're not sure we can manage this because there's never ever been in football, in English football, a scenario like what is happening now. Never has been. Other than maybe a COVID, actually, I guess, in a weird way. But then this is different because the players flew off to a different continent, and we had more than most because we are a better team. That's not a fucking some tiny rainbow thing. It's just rainbow. It's a tiny violin. What the fuck's a tiny rainbow? I could do one of them. A tiny violin thing. But it's true. Like, City did have more, and is he not basically trying to pick people on fitness and all this kind of stuff as opposed to like, is it necessary, or do you think he's doing it too much?
I think that's certainly part of it. I haven't seen the comments myself, but I'm pretty sure in the press conference I've seen some people. I think that the guys over at Noisy Pod have made the point that he's kind of highlighted that fitness is more important than consistency at this point of the season, and I completely understand that, like you say, because of the nature of the season, that's very much why. But I think we have the personnel to just So every season we've basically played a 4-3-3 or some variation of a 4-3-3. It might be an inverted winger or a wide winger. It might be a inverted fullback or a traditional right back who's a bit wider. Yeah. It might be Cancelo who's overlapping on the right hand side. It might be Sergio Gomez who's overlapping. You know what I mean? But the point is, it's ultimately a 4-3-3, and it's everyone kind of knows the positions. The midfield three usually stays, at least two of the three is pretty consistent, and the front three is one or two players might switch out every week, but the system ultimately a lot of the time remains the same, and that's like and again the Pep can do no wrong crowd may well say that, well, it changes every game. Like, obviously, like, Pep never plays the same system 2 games in a row because individual blah, blah, blah. And right, fine. But ultimately, it's usually a 4-3-3 with like 1 or 2 players swapped out. Like, I think we can all agree that over the last 5 years, that's basically been what it is.
Yeah, that's fair.
But for the last month, it feels like one game we're playing a 4-4-2 against Chelsea with Rodri at centre-back and Cancelo on the right wing. And then we're playing Rico Lewis as an inverted fullback with Mahrez an inverted winger on the right wing as well, with Ake not providing anything going forward on the other side. Then we're playing 3 fullbacks at the pitch today, including Walker at centre back for possibly the first time in like 2 or 3 years, maybe. Like, I understand fitness is
because that was not because Stones was out and he wanted to save Akanji and Ake. He was Ake for the weekend.
Probably, but I don't know. He had two fullback, having two centre backs on the bench, unless you know they're both going to play in the derby. And to me, it probably suggests they are both going to play in the derby. Yeah. I don't. Maybe he just thought the Carabao's the one we can bin off, like not bin off, but it's the least important. If we play a makeshift centre back in this game, it's not really the end of the world. And he's, you know what? Maybe on that I don't necessarily disagree because I'm not hugely wounded that we're out of the competition, but yeah, I just feel like the players are in a position. We've spoken about this before about the Champions League final and how that game was probably largely down to the fact that an entirely new a team that was in an entirely new combination for that one game meant that everybody had to sort of almost overthink their roles and what they were doing, and the fluid muscle memory passing that's normally there wasn't, because people had to think about it. And I feel like at this point of the season where the systems that we've got haven't been locked down because Pep hasn't played them back to back for 2 or 3 months straight. You know, this secondary system that we've seen start to creep into what we're doing a bit more in this last month for the sake of fitness. Players are not used to it, and this is probably why we're not having as much control in games, because players aren't used to the positions they're in, the players that are around them, where they're positioned around them. That could not be the case. I could just be talking shit, but that to me feels like it's a large part of it.
There is something in the idea that the lack of familiarity, or I guess my issue sort of is, I do agree that the muscle memory thing helps, and when you are tired and when you've got the expectation of the world on your shoulders at a World Cup and so on, and you are looking for fitness and confidence, sometimes there's familiarity in there's comfort in familiarity is what I'm trying to say. Like this idea that when you know something that it's tried and trusted, there is an idea that you do need to go back to what you know and what works for you. And it does feel like City so far, their identity has changed an awful lot. Like we're constantly changing the team. It could be out of necessity. It could be that Guardiola is going, right now I need to play it because I need to get everyone back, and everyone came back at different times and the rhythm's not right. But I mean, it could be that he knows this and it's just a case of going through the pain, so to speak, and coming out the other side, and we find a confidence and so on. But the downside of that is, ultimately, players do sort of eventually lose their confidence a little bit, and it looks like they're all looking around for someone to take the lead, and there was a lack of kind of creativity. And everyone goes, oh, they're not trying. I don't think that's the case. I don't think instinctively these players know how not try, if that makes sense. Like I think they're too good to not try. Like I think they're ultimately their level that they play at as footballers is too high for them to be shirkers. I don't think they are, but I do think their confidence right now, it looks a little bit lost. It looks like they're trying to force it. And then there was a bit towards the end of the game where Ake was just trying to push forward, and I was, in my head I was like, he's going to turn around and pass it back here, and he did. I don't blame him because what else is he meant to do? He doesn't. He's Nathan Ake. He's solid, reliable, dependent. Doesn't have a bad game. Centre back, sorry, but he's not a creative guy who's going to score. And ultimately, we're leaning on people like that an awful lot. And Foden's out of form, and then Gundo was the only one. Occasionally had the odd bit of magic with that little 1-2 run, and then. Grealish is Jack Grealish right now, and that's all I can say. Grealish is what we've seen for an awful long time, and people will turn around and say it's just a one-off game, but it feels like it's been sliding this way. And it could be that we fix it very quickly, but it does feel like we are lacking a little bit of spark, and we are lacking a little bit of confidence in the system, and maybe because the system doesn't exist, maybe it is that. Maybe Kyle Walker's played too many roles. Maybe Cancelo's not a right back anymore, by the way. I don't give a shit what anyone says. He is not a right back anymore. No. Like he had a stinker of a game, and it's. I guess the difficult thing is to try and find how serious this is. Like how serious this is. Like, oh, City suddenly a bad side, or are they a side that will be okay in a month from now? Are they a side that will be struggling in 3 months from now? Like, what is our strongest side, Joe? What is our strongest side?
God, I wish I knew at the moment. I think. It's weird because since we've come back from the World Cup, we haven't seen what most people would consider our strongest 11 since then. Like, Cancelo's not played a game at left back since we came back from the World Cup. Like, he's only played at right wing against Chelsea. Did he play left back against Chelsea at the weekend? Just gone?
He came on, didn't he? Oh,
yeah. No, it was Gomez. Gomez started the game.
Yeah, Gomez. Didn't he come on though? He come on as left back at one point. He did.
I think he did. I think he came on for the last 15-20 minutes. But we've not seen a starting lineup where the back four is Walker, Stones, Ake, Cancelo, which I think with Diaz currently out injured.
Not my son. The actual footballer. I miss him.
Yeah, with maybe you can make an argument that Laporte goes in there instead of Ake, but
Yeah.
I think at the moment on form, Stones Ake centre back partnership with Walker and Cancelo as left backs. That's what a lot of people, based on who's available, would call our strongest back four. We've not seen it once since the World Cup. The midfield we've seen Bernardo and Gundogan both go in there alongside Rodri and Kev, and that's maybe you can raise some questions over the maybe the form that Bernardo's come back with, but he runs a lot, mate. So he's still very good. He's still very good, and no matter what. And I think the front line has just been it's been Grealish and Mahrez for most of the games that we've started, and when we're also playing Ake and Lewis at fullbacks, and I love Rico Lewis. I would happily watch him start plenty more games for Manchester City, but I don't think him and Mahrez really works on the right hand side, because then you've got basically nobody covering. You're relying on a centre back who's playing a wider centre back role in the back three to then be the guy who covers most often a pacey counter attack going the other way, and then that obviously just leads to trouble. But I don't know what our strongest starting 11 is at the moment, because currently we've got about 10-15 players who are woefully out of form. So I don't really know what the best 11 is. Even Kev looks shit these days, because basically everyone's plan is just give him the ball and see what he does. And I don't care how good you are. There's only so long that you can do that for in the Premier League before you start to look like it's taking its toll on you. And I think that's very much the case with Kevin De Bruyne at the moment.
It does feel like it's very much give the ball to Kevin if he can't do anything. But even he's not playing well, so his form has dropped a little bit at the moment. I mean, he was only a few games back that he was playing brilliantly, but he really was. He was great against Liverpool and whatever, and Leeds was decent games. But then it has dropped, and it has, the problem is, the problem is when people like KDB have bad games. KDB is such a figurehead. Like, he's almost people follow him, essentially. They do follow him, and if he's not playing well, it's like, oh fuck, now what do we do? There's an element of some players are too important to play badly because they affect the whole confidence in the team, and they affect the whole mentality and just generally the vibe of the dressing room. And KDB not being able to pull it out, and then there's an element of like, oh god, and then Foden not being able to pull it out of the bag, and then before you know it, the confidence of the team has disappeared. And maybe I'm being Yadar here, but like I kind of sort of wish we had Ruben Diaz back. Someone who's a bit of a fucking warrior. Yeah. I feel like we need some people banging heads together right now, and like we probably genuinely do. And I think we underestimate at times just how much because I was sat watching it, wanting Vincent Kompany back. I was just wanting someone to be like, fucking come on, a little bit of aggression, and it was. It's like I don't know, Joe. I don't know. I mean, everyone's talking about individuals, but I see a lot of people talking about individuals. I mean, yeah, there are some players who are worse than others in this team. They are, but I'm with Joe on this way. It feels more like we can talk about going, oh, we've got a problem at left back. It's true. But the left back wasn't the problem tonight. Everyone was the problem last night.
Wasn't a problem last season when we had Zinchenko. But,
it's like
where's he at the moment? He's playing very well for an Arsenal team that are probably with a very good shout of winning the league at the moment. So I
don't even know what to make of Phillips either, because obviously like it's his first competitive start. The weird thing for Phillips is like there's so much pressure on him because he's been out for so long, and we're at the business end of the season, and it's his first start. So this should have been an August game for him. You know what I mean? But it isn't, and he hasn't got time to be. Oh, what am I working out here? He hasn't got time for that, but at the same time, he's going to have to learn it. But he had a poor. He looked miles off Rodri's level. He did. Yeah. But I'm sure he isn't miles off his level. If you know what I mean, I'm sure he's below it. But is he miles off it? Like, surely he can't be that bad. I don't know. What do you reckon?
I think Phillips is. If Phillips is on form and at his best, Phillips is great. Like, Phillips is more than capable of stepping into Rodri's role for the sake of for what 15, 20 games a season, like presuming that's how many he'll probably start with Rodri, just to give Rodri a rest, especially in this season where games are going to be every 3 days. I think that's a problem as well, because like you say, if this game was in August, then Phillips would probably have a week on the training ground to get before the next game to sort of work on things.
Yeah.
But with the games coming every 3 or 4 days, like how much time on the training ground is there at the moment? Like, it's it's simultaneously a great time for players to play their way out of form if you're that kind of player who just needs the momentum of playing game after game after game to just get out of that funk.
Do you know what it reminds you of? With Phillips now, it reminds you of when you've got an academy player who has a few decent little games, but then it gets to January, February, like, we can't play him anymore because it's too important now. They haven't got time for them to work it out.
Suddenly the pressure's on.
But it feels like that with Calvin Phillips, which is crazy. But it can't be that way. And I'm sure it isn't. I'm sure actually a few games will be better than that. But fuck me, we missed Rodri, and that was.
Speaking of academy players, I mean, we had one of them playing against us tonight, didn't we? He looked better than Phillips.
He did.
And that's like another.
He actually did.
That's another clanger that we've potentially dropped there. But I think it's just it's Rodri's probably the best holding midfielder in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
If not just full stop. So obviously anybody who comes in is going to look levels below Rodri, but he looked levels below the guy playing in the same position for Southampton this game, and I think it's just, and that's first start in the middle of a side where you've probably it's a side that he's certainly not played with before. I would hazard a guess. He doesn't really have these relationships on the pitch with everyone. I'm not really going to go too hard on Phillips for that. It's just so happens to be that his position is such a crucial one that, kind of like De Bruyne, when you have a bad game, it's very obvious you've had a bad game because the ball will typically go. Like, how many times has Rodri just just pluck the ball out of the air and just stop something from going the other way? Like, if you don't do that, then you automatically look bad as a result of that. And how many times did we say that, when Rodri first came to us, how many times did we look at him and say, he's too slow?
That's true. That's genuinely true. Plodri was called. Plodri, I remember.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so now hopefully, if obviously Rodri had the luxury of playing every game anyway because Pep had the faith in him to get to that level, and he did. But Phillips obviously isn't going to have that. But we can just hope that over time, if he does come in for a few more games here and there, that he will eventually get to the level where he knows it's not about his, I think we kind of looked at him after Leeds and sort of thought that he might come in as a bit closer to the Fernandinho style, where he could run around a bit more and be the guy who sort of cleans up attacks and just stops that from happening with his physicality. But whether it's just because he's just come back from injury or whether it's because he's horrifically overweight or what, I don't know what the reason is, but he didn't look really on it tonight. But he's not the worst defender, so fat Calvin.
Oh God, what did what I was going to say? What about Ortega? What did you make of that? That was what the fuck was he doing?
So the first 10 minutes, he makes an amazing save. That save that he does, the one that was going sort of right in the bottom corner, that he just somehow, his arm just appears from nowhere and just tips it round the post. It was an unreal save.
Yeah.
And then to just make the basic error that he makes within 15 minutes of that is just I don't understand. I can't think of,
what'd you do? No. What would you say if you're the manager there? Stefan, could you please not stand 13 yards off your line when the guy's 20 yards from goal? Do you even have to say that? That's it feels like to someone saying to me, Stephen, when you go on a stream, can you just probably not spout Nazi propaganda? You're like, all right, you know what I mean? It's fair enough. It's it's the kind of shit you shouldn't have to say. You know what I mean? It's just such a fucking weird mistake that you're like, how did it happen? How would you allow for that as a manager? Because that's not Guardiola's fault that Ortega decided to go literally 13 yards off. It's just so. Is a brain fart, I guess, isn't it? It's
one of them where rather than Pep will have bollocked the rest of the team, he'll have gone in and at half time he'll just screamed at everyone. But I think with Ortega, it's almost like you just sit him in the corner and just go, look, mate, you know what you've done. I'm not even going to say anything.
It was so weird.
That would sort of almost. To some people, that would probably feel worse to just have them go, look, I'm not even going to bother.
I'm not angry, I'm disappointed kind of thing, that kind of stuff.
It's just so... It's like he was a centre-back trying to push up to play the offside. It's so mad. I don't understand what he was doing. I saw it go in, and I was like, there's got to be something wrong here. There's got to be a reason why. He's surely heard the whistle and just done that sort of thing where they just kick it in the net for a laugh or something like that. There's no way this is an actual goal. And then lo and behold, it turns out he's just run to the edge of his penalty area for no reason.
Yeah.
I've got no idea. It is what it is. He's made a stupid mistake. Sadly, if you're a keeper, that means you've conceded a goal. But Yeah, let's be honest. Let's be honest. He could have not conceded that second goal, and we were never scoring one to get back in the game anyway. So it's kind of thankfully it wasn't the defining reason why we went out. But yeah, I think maybe some people will be backtracking on the Ortega hype train slightly. Although he is still very good.
I thought that that's the thing, isn't it? Like I saw some people, even journalists saying like just like it was a Manchester Evening News journalist saying like look, City thought they had their backup goalkeeper.
I saw
thing.
that.
I was like, well, that felt a bit.
The search for a competent backup goalkeeper continues. It's like he's not that bad. Like he just made one error. Like it
was such a weird error that it was like. It was such a weird error that you go like, is that surely we've never signed anyone that bad? Like, you know, it surely, like, I don't know. It's not like he was fumbling the ball into the back of the net. It was just like he just forgot to run back. I know it sounds so...
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's like... Yeah, it's like me forgetting to turn the camera on and talking for 10 minutes. It's that kind of level, like, wow, that's not really normal. You know, like, it's like, it's just, I don't know, it's strange. People are talking about Cole Palmer. I'll bring it up. You know my thoughts on this, Joe, but, like, try and put my thoughts out of it. Because I want, you know, because you know how I feel about this. Because I was ranting to about before because some guy was calling me God knows what for... Anyway, what are your thoughts? And be honest, and you don't, you know, I want to know your genuine thoughts on the situation.
So I remember Cole Palmer last season, and he was mint, and he got to the point where he was starting a Premier League game because he was that good. Like he was displacing Mahrez on current form. It was Everton he played against, didn't he? He got a start against them last year, and he didn't look out of place at all. And to be honest, in the cup games that he's played, I think he played against Chelsea, didn't he, before the break? Mm-hmm. And he played against Liverpool in the Carabao just after the break. And I think he looked fine in those games. Like he's obviously got the quality to play in this squad, even if it is just in the context of, you know, Carabao games and like but I just think whether it's because he's played some of these games on the left and that's obviously not his natural position, or whether it's just because the whole team's playing shit and he's not immune to that. Maybe I don't really know what the problem is, but it seems very odd to single out an academy player when you've got senior internationals who are, you know, captains of their respective countries also playing shit in the same game. Like, what do you want? Do you want Cole Palmer to be the guy who steps up and wins the game for us when we've got, you know, Rodri, De Bruyne, Haaland, Alvarez on the pitch, and at the end of the, like, you know what I mean? Like,
so I thought I'd look at his stats, you know, because everyone was saying he was diabolical. In my head, before the stats, I thought about what he did. And I was like, he had a few touches of the ball, a few I would say, like genuinely a few. There was one where he won the ball, which was a good interception, and he ran up the pitch and he made a chance. I remember that, you know, early on where he did it. It was really nice, and he cut back as well. And there was one where he tried to dribble someone and didn't dribble past them, and then a couple of crosses, and then there's a couple of completed passes. And I went to look at the stats, and that was it. 18 touches. Like touches are never a player's fault. If you're a winger, you don't get your touches. That's just not your fault. It isn't. It isn't your fault. Like you should get the ball more than that. He had a chance created and he had 6 out of 9 passes completed. So a couple of them were crosses. So he didn't really give the ball away much other than a couple of crosses. He didn't win a dribble. He attempted one dribble, didn't win it. You know, and he won one at tackles, and then so basically he had a very meh game in my opinion. It was, I don't think everyone's acting like he played like Gomez. Like Gomez had a bad game. Now that's a bad game where you give the ball away constantly. You just do stupid little things and you look totally out of position. Like, I'm not just trying to defend Cole Palmer for the sake of it. I promise you I'm not, everyone in the chat. I'm not. I will if someone has a fucking stinker, I will say if they had a stinker. He just didn't have a stinker. He was just indifferent. Like, and I don't think there's any like, and I always feel like the reason I always say put him on the right is because I do think he's a fucking great right winger, and I'm going to bang this drum and I'm going to hold my hands up, and maybe I'll look back in a few years and you'll go, Stephen, you're a fucking idiot and you're wrong. Fair enough if so. But I believe it hand on heart. I believe it hand on heart that if City play well and get the ball to him literally a few times in a game and let him run at people, eventually he will actually have some success and he'll create goals. I believe that is true. And I believe...
Go on, sorry.
But I was to say, I don't think it's on a 20-year-old guy who's only played 20 games in his career and about 10 starts in his career to solve that City side. What about, like, I love Phil Foden. What about Phil? He was fucking shite. What about Grealish, who cost £100 million? He did nothing. And I'm not trying to single these out either. It's just literally true. What about Kevin De Bruyne, who came on and gave the ball away more or less every single time? Kevin De Bruyne is probably the best midfielder in the world at form, you know? What about Kyle Walker, a senior, you know, 32 is it now? 32-year-old centre-back who was played 10 yards further to the left. It looked like a man who'd never kicked a football before at times. You know, like, these things all happened, but like, and someone said, so Foden and Grealish were shy, but Palmer was indifferent. I would say in the context, yes, actually. I would say the increased expectation and so on, and the fact that they expect more. I would say maybe actually Grealish, maybe they were more indifferent, but I would say the context is worse. I would say it's worse to be indifferent as the senior player than it is for the young academy player who gets hardly any touches and the ball doesn't go to him. I would say that is personally.
I think for me, it's a case of if Alvarez and Grealish in that first half were really in the game and were making a huge difference, and Cole Palmer was the one who stuck out like a sore thumb on the other side, doing absolutely nothing to contribute.
Yeah,
I would think there was something in the idea that he was especially bad. However, as was the case, neither of that front three really got a sniff in that first half at all, because for whatever reason, either Southampton pressed us really well, or that midfield just didn't work, or the full backs were just shit at passing it out, and the centre backs were as well, and just like the build up was just absolutely non-existent to the point where it never reached the forwards in the first place. I think there's only so much of that you can put at the feet of the forwards at that stage. Like if obviously they've got to press themselves and try and win the ball back themselves, and I don't know what his running stats were, but I'm sure he did. I'm sure he tried. But at the end of the day, if you're not getting the ball from the midfield, how much can a winger really affect the game when that's not the case? If he was a standout shit performer in an otherwise good performance from the rest of the team, cool. But he wasn't. He was just as bad or just as indifferent as the rest of them. So at that point, why are you singling him out in particular?
Where do we go from here, Joe? Where do we go from here? Like what United?
To the Manchester derby.
Yeah, like
yeah.
Surely it's fucking different, man. Surely this is not Manchester City against Manchester United. This is not the City side. I mean, literally, it won't be the City side. It'll be vastly different. No. But we have to play better than this, right? I mean,
so bold prediction: we're gonna play Rico Lewis at right back. So we're gonna have an inverted full back.
So Kyle Walker's getting dropped against Rashford, right?
Yeah. Okay. Not because I want him to be. I would like Walker to be a very traditional right back in this game and just try to shut down Marcus Rashford. However, based on how the season has gone so far, I think Pep's attempt to stifle counter-attacks is not to have someone who can just outpace them on the counter-attack. It's to try to have ultimate control to mean that counter-attacks never happen in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think Rico Lewis being as an inverted fullback increases the likelihood of this. Is just going off I'm just trying to go off what Pep would do, and currently, based on the evidence we've had in the last month,
man. Who knows?
Based on the evidence of the last month, I believe that is what Pep will do. I think it's going to be Rodri, Kev. It's probably going to be a back two of, hopefully, if Stones is fit, it'll be Stones and Laporte.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then Ake at left back, and then
that's already so defensive, isn't it, man? It's already so defensive.
It's Grealish and Mahrez season, boys. Like, it's happening. Like, we're having that and Haaland up front, and it's gonna be Kevin. Probably Bernardo just for the legs in midfield. I think with Casemiro in the form that he's in at the moment, we're gonna want people sort of buzzing around him to try and make his life as difficult as possible. But I think, ultimately it's going to come down to the fact that our width is going to be two inverted wingers, an inverted fullback, and a very defensive fullback.
Should it not be Cancelo though? As bad as he's playing, should it not be Cancelo at left back? Like, should it not be?
I think at some point we do definitely have to see that, but I think for the Manchester derby with the current form that he's in, whether that's because he's being played out of position or not, which he definitely has been for the last couple of games he started, I just don't think you can afford to put him in there and have him drop an absolute against Anthony as well, who's maybe been in a bit in different form, but is ultimately still very tricky on that
spin
left-hand
around
side.
4 times and then score 40-yard goal or something.
Correct. I think he's just going to want Ake for that defensive solidity to just sort of try and lock down that side. I think that's what he'll do there and sort of try to control it on the other end. And obviously Ake and Rico Lewis, both very good with the ball at the feet, both going to keep hold of the ball.
Gundo or Bernardo? Because KDB's going to start and Rodri's going to start.
Yeah, I think
maybe
just
both.
Think Bernardo.
Maybe Mahrez will start actually, so it will be Bernardo.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the form Mahrez is in, I would maybe suggest that might happen. But I think with Mahrez and having had the last few games he's got to start. And then I think honestly, Grealish I just think it's going to be full control from Pep again in it. He's going to go Grealish. It's going to be, we're not going to see Foden and then Haaland up front, and then he's probably going to get like 3 chances. He's going to probably get 1 chance all game, and whether he scores it or not, we'll see. But I just think, based on the last month or so, I find it difficult to see Pep turn this into a basketball game. He's going to want total control. He's going to want it to just be, you know what, we've played badly. So what I want us to do is just we're going to double down. We're going to just make sure that we don't lose the ball. I want this game to just be about you keeping it and don't let them have it. And it'll set us up to do that. And whether, you know, in the form that everyone's in, whether they're capable of keeping the ball and having that ultimate control, we'll find out.
Yeah.
But that's my prediction anyway of how it's going to look.
I think it'll be that. I think the team sort of picks it. I think it will be Rico, Akanji or Stones, then with Laporte, probably Ake. I don't think it should be Ake. I think it's too conservative, but it's going to be Rodri. KDB is going to play, and I think Bernardo will play for legs in midfield. And also, to be fair, Bernardo's good in a derby. He scores goals in derbies and whatever. So he's good in a derby. So I'm not sure if that even matters, but I'll go with that. You know, I'll go with nostalgia in this thing. And it is going to be Mahrez, and it will be Grealish, and it will be Haaland, which makes you think the last time we played a derby, Phil Foden scored a hat trick. Joe, fuck me.
Yeah.
What's happened with Phil? Like, none of us actually know, but like. He surely is trying. He's Phil Foden, you know. Like, he doesn't know anything other than football. What's your take on the Phil Foden situation?
I just think it's very strange. Like, he went to the World Cup and he didn't play loads. He played he played. Did he play every game? I think he came on as a sub for one or two of them.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm remembering that wrong, but I think he came back and then all of a sudden he's like one of the last players to get into the team. I think him, Walker and Cancelo, other than Phillips, who has obviously came back fat. They were the three who were the final ones to sort of get back into the starting 11s. I don't know if that's there's been a few sort of suggestions that it's maybe like a body, like I don't know. Pep said that thing about body language last week, and that it's because he's come back with some kind of attitude issue, or maybe it's just that he's just, I don't know. Maybe he's just looking. Maybe there's something going on in his personal life that just means that Pep just knows that starting him is probably not a great idea at the moment. Well, we don't have a clue, but whatever it is, he looks like he's a totally. He doesn't look like someone who, you know, last year or the year before we were all talking about him saying this guy's on like Haaland. This guy, Haaland and Mbappe are like going to be the three going forwards. The guy looks like he's going to, at his current rate, it looks like he's going to get shipped off to Spurs in a couple of years, doesn't it? Like, it doesn't look like he's going to be but I think obviously he's going to find the form again. It will come back. Like, he is mint. He is going to be on that level that we all thought he was going to be a couple of years ago. It's just that he's kind of not too dissimilar from the rest of the team in the sense that he just doesn't know what his job is at the moment by the looks of things. I don't know whether it's because, you know, he's played more central these last couple of games. Obviously against Chelsea that looked really good, but tonight it didn't. I don't know if Pep maybe just is desperate to get Grealish in the side and just realizes that you can't have Grealish and Foden in the same side at the moment. I don't know. I
don't agree with that, but yeah, it does feel that way at the moment, doesn't it? It does feel that way.
Yeah, it feels like he's sort of very wedded to Grealish being on the left hand side, like no matter what. Whether it's because of the price tag, whether it's because he just loves the fact that he can keep hold of the possession, even if it means that he provides very little in an attacking sense, and whether that's just all he wants. But
here's something refreshing for once. Guardiola said we didn't play good, we didn't play well in the beginning. So usually Guardiola's like, oh, we worked hard tonight. He basically said we didn't play well. So when you were prepared, you scored the goal, but we didn't. When you're not prepared to play this, you arrive an inch late and don't score. Today was a bad night. The opponent was better, so we'd congratulate him. To win games, you have to deserve it. Tonight, we didn't deserve it. So that's unusually frank from Guardiola, because usually, I mean, he didn't slate anyone individually, but he said we weren't good enough. He said about the derby, he said if we perform in this way, we don't have a chance. So so there's Guardiola being frank for once. So Guardiola knows it. We didn't get any we were good tonight. Southampton were an incredible side.
I'm so satisfied.
So satisfied. Pep was honest. So, you know, which leads me to a super chat actually from Pift, which sums up the night. Pift said, Pep said in the super chat, usually after a disappointing game, City end up smashing their opponent in the next one, so beware United. You might be onto something in this instance, mate, simply because Guardiola's come out and said we were shite. So usually, usually Guardiola's going to be that blunt about it. Hopefully this is going to be your tired fuck you season from Guardiola. You know, surely it has to be, because there is no way that every single player does not walk into the training room tomorrow looking very sheepish. Like everyone, like literally, there's not a single player that will have their head held high tomorrow. I'm not saying anyone should be like, maybe there are one or two that feel like they could do, but they were so collectively involved in such a poor performance that they will all feel stupid tonight, I reckon. Like all of them. Like they'll all be a bit embarrassed, and we can only hope that basically that humiliation and the dressing down that they'll get tomorrow at training will hopefully spark some kind of reaction, because it has felt like we've been crawling down to this point, like we've been getting poorer and poorer and losing our confidence, and hopefully this is the bottom. This is the bottom, and then after that, surely if you hit the bottom, the only way could potentially be up. We'll see. Joe, I'm going to leave it there, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. Joe is the top bloke, as you guys know. If you want to go and follow Joe on Twitter, I'll type it in the chat now. 1 second. www.twitter.com/ Joe plug. Go follow Joe. Joe's a top bloke. There we go. And Joe was the foil that I needed tonight, because I could not be bothered. I couldn't be bothered, Joe, mate. I just couldn't be bothered.
I definitely needed this. I'm gonna sleep easy now, knowing that. Like otherwise,
it would have been me just getting defensive in questions and going like, we are not the worst team in the world, and everyone telling me we're the worst team in the world. So anyway, go and give Joe a follow. Anyway, Joe's the top bloke, as you can see. Thanks, Joe, for coming on, mate. I really do appreciate that.
Cheers, thanks for having me.
Guys, thanks for watching this City of fucking shite. There you go, have it. Pep's a fraud. They're all washed up. They're all useless. Have we got 40 points yet? We have got 40 points, haven't we? Have we not? Oh, no.
Oh, we haven't actually.
No, we got 39 points. We're getting relegated.
Relegation's
staring us down. We're going to get battered in the derby, and it's back to this. We may also have Shino Archer as our own again. So everything's terrible. Fuck me, that was bad. Let's see how it goes. I actually think... Do you know what? If we don't win the league this season and we have a bad season, everyone else better be scared, because we're going to splash the cash, and that'll be fun at very least. Anyway, thanks very much, guys, for watching. I would say like this video if you want to. It'll make me feel better a little bit. Subscribe if you want to. I only need 50 more subscribers to get to 65,000. That'd put a smile on my face. I'm going to go and hug my son Ruben and pretend that things aren't awful. Right, good night, everyone. Love you all loads. In a bit. Cheers, Joe. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.